Welcome back to the show. This is an episode all about something that I think is absolutely crucial when we're talking about things that impact our lives massively, whatever area. And it's something that it's another one of those points. If you go back and look at my origin story, so much of the stuff I've learned in the past few years, I could already see in other people and I could never see in myself. And that's one of the things that is incredible about going through down this path and figuring this stuff out, is that loads of the stuff we can see in others is actually deep inside us as well. And this is a key one. So it was something I could see in people close to me and used to drive me mad, to be honest. Black and white thinking. So the concept that things are either one thing or another and they are absolute. And I want to talk a bit about this now because we've done some stuff about imagination and stories. I want to talk about conspiracy theories in the midst of the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. And I want us to talk about loads of different things around that, truth and assessing information. And the building blocks for that is thinking about black and white thinking first, which is why we're starting here. It might not be that long an episode because this is one of those things where the concept is quite simple. And then it's just about applying it in life, which is it's not easy. You'll hear me say that phrase a lot. We conflate, in my mind, the terms simple and easy, and they're not the same thing. So something can be simultaneously simple and not easy. Good example, making money. Actually making money, if you look back through history, the principles of making money are really simple. It's just not easy to do. Getting a six-pack, losing weight, getting in shape, the principles are dead simple, just not easy to do. Simple and easy are not the same thing. The principles behind this are simple. Doesn't mean it's easy to put into your life and to rid your life of this curse, I would call it. So, black and white thinking. The problem is, in the society we live in, without even realising it, we're always told, subconsciously, we have to decide. It's either this or it's this. So think about every time you see a debate on TV, think about every election, think about even the term black and white. So this is something I think about a lot lately. We talk about humans in the main, and there are lots of other races as well, obviously, but we talk about black people and white people. And I only thought a few months ago, I have never met in my life either a black person or a white person. Just wherever you are now, find the colour black somewhere and find the colour white and hold it up against your skin and see whether you're either of those colours. I'm not. If you ask me what colour I am a combination of loads of different things, depending on where about my body you look. None of it's absolutely white. It's pink, it's brown, it's a bit tan, it's pasty. It's pasty colour. You see what I mean? But we think in very simple terms in black and white. Same with everything else. Politics, you choose between red and blue usually. Labour, Conservative, Republican, Democrat. I remember watching a Newsnight show in the UK a while ago, and there were two politicians, one from Labour and one from the Conservative Party. And the host said to them, but if you're talking to each other, that's just the two of you, forget everything else, aren't your political views closer to each other than they are to your leaders of your parties? Because both parties at the time had leaders farish left and farish right. And these two MPs were more centrists. And neither of them, and I understood why, could say yes. But the true answer was yes. They were closer to each other. But because we have to draw this line of I'm Labour and you're Conservative, we can't possibly have anything in common. And this causes huge problems throughout our society. And where I think it takes us to is, instead of thinking in terms of black and white, right and wrong, good and bad, is thinking in terms of scales. So scaled thinking instead of black and white thinking. And the best way I can describe that to you is, think about your TV settings. If you go to your TV and you put the settings button on, it doesn't say to you, do you want the TV in colour or black and white? Do you want it light or do you want it dark? Do you want the volume full or off? It gives you scales, and it says, what do you like? Do you like this level of brightness? Do you like this level of colour? Do you like this level of volume? And what you pick might be different to what I pick. But it scales, and it's the same throughout our lives. If we think in terms of scales instead of black and white, everything becomes easier, because instead of thinking, right, I have to pick a side, you can say, well, okay, on this scale, where am I on it? So one of the other things I think is we love labeling people. We love saying, you're autistic. She's autistic, he isn't. He's got ADHD, she hasn't. She's a psychopath, he isn't. He's got narcissism, she hasn't. The reality is, if you pick the vast majority of any label you want to put on people, it's not black and white. We've all got something of everything in us on a scale. So think of it on a scale of 0 to 100, like the TV settings. On a scale of 0 to 100, do I have a bit of autism in me? Yeah. I have character traits of autism, I do. Do I have a bit of ADHD? Yeah. My brain fires around all over the place. Where is it on that scale? I don't know, to be honest. But I know it's not 0, and I know it's not 100. It's not black or white. I wouldn't say I have ADHD, but I also wouldn't say I don't have any ADHD characteristics. This is the other point. So we'll often label things when actually what we mean is that person displays some characteristics of X, Y, or Z. Scale thinking. I'm going to make my first prediction of these videos. Be interested to see if this comes true at some point in the future. I think at some future point in time, this is how we will look at humans. We will no longer say straight or gay, introvert or extrovert, man or woman, black or white. Everything will be scales. Everything will be, where are you on this scale? Because even right now, think about that. We have these debates about art. I love thinking that each generation has its own challenge, and each generation thinks it's ultimately liberal compared to the ones that went before. So the generations before mine, we've had race disputes. We've had my generation's one, because by the time my generation came through, I was brought up that race wasn't an issue, but I could see in my era that sexuality was an issue. So the fact of whether someone was straight or gay, it's only in recent times that that's become more of an inclusive thing. There were still people I remember growing up who were getting thrown out of their houses because their dad didn't like the fact that they were gay. This generation's challenge now for everybody is the question about gender. The same thing is happening, and very few people can see it. It's the same challenge. You think you're liberal, but then when it comes to something that really questions your liberal ideals, it's a problem. But when you stop and think about it, if you stop thinking about all of this stuff as black and white and think of it all as scales, it already makes sense. So on sexuality, of a scale of completely heterosexual to completely homosexual, everybody is somewhere on that scale. There are some men who are way more manly than me. I am way more, you can turn that better to be feminine and masculine. It's easier to talk about. I'm way more feminine in many ways than loads of men. There are loads of women who are more masculine than other women, but it's on a scale. Whereabouts are you on that scale? And if we can start thinking about things in those terms and in our own lives, so this is the challenge in your life when you've finished watching this video or listening to this podcast, think about where you're thinking in black and white terms. Just observe it as you're going forward, as you're going through your daily life. Let it just float around in your mind, and don't obsess about it, but just keep it in the back of your mind. Am I thinking in black and white terms about this? Politics is a big one, really, really big one, because it's so divisive. But actually, if you sit down and look at policies, there's Michael Moore books, books actually, I've seen it, I can't remember which one it was, but he tends to do this during his documentaries as well. He'll list a load of policies and lead you down the path of thinking, this must be a conservative policy, this must be a Republican policy. And then you realise at the end it wasn't. It was a left-wing political party. It was the Democrats or Labour Party who brought this thing in. But it sounds like it's right-wing. And that's the thing. If we can sit down and go, what do I actually believe? Forget what the parties say. Forget what the labels are in anything in my life. What do I actually think? And then reel that back into, and where is the black and white thinking blocking me? Where am I being stopped? Where is it causing problems? Because I'm thinking in absolute terms. When you can start going down that path and start thinking, okay, instead of thinking absolute, can I think on this scale? Then that'll lead you nicely into the next video, and we'll talk about assessing information, figuring out what's true, what isn't true, and build it in to the stories and imagination stuff we talked about in the last episode. Hope you've enjoyed that. It's fairly short. I like the principles. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know if you've got any questions, any feedback. As usual, if you like this stuff, share it with one friend who might like it as well. See you soon.